Eisenstein talks a lot in this film, I'm sure you'll agree. I think that's indicative of who he was. He was very articulate, very verbose, always talking. And there are many arguments in the film about all sorts of subject matters, but predominantly the film is about this two central, I suppose, phenomenon, which certainly the Greeks knew, eros and thanatos. The very beginning of our lives and the very end. So the notion of sex and death. And the whole film, surely, is about sex and death. And we're in Mexico. And all those people who might even only have a fleeting knowledge of Mexico know that there is a way that the Mexicans, and I maybe should hand the subject over here to Louis, are very concerned about the notions of death and how it's represented and how to live with the possibilities. But I think, even cinema is surely all about sex and death, isn't it? Isn't most Western art is about sex and death, the very, very beginning and the very, very end. Again, as Eisenstein says in the film, the non-negotiables. I'm not so sure now in the 21st century that they are so unnegotiable. There are all sorts of ways and means now that we can put death off, and most people are living to much greater age than they used to, and we can now choose and organize our sexual preferences, which certainly our fathers and forefathers never could. So I wanted to make sure that there was a great sense of physicality, a great sense of viscerality about these two notions. We never killed anybody in the film, but we certainly pretended, indeed, that they did make love. And if you want to talk about these things, well, let's do it. Let's show you. Let's make a demonstration of what's at stake here. What is also interesting is the comment you made, how this happens exactly in the center of the film. And I think you can only think about the film very, very quickly to realize the film is very, very symmetrical. The beginning and the end of the film matches. And if you were actually to take a stopwatch, or you were interested in enumeration, you would find indeed the fuck, can I use that word? The fuck right is exactly in the middle of the film, which again, in terms of cinema, the conscious activity of cinema is a demonstration of how important that enormously significant phenomenon is right there, like the crown jewel in the middle of this film.
For everyone there, it was a challenge. We had just 3.5 weeks in Guanajuato to make this film. And we were all like crazy, and there we have Peter, like, you see him now at 6 o'clock in the morning, and 12 hours later, he was like the same. And you just hear, thank you very much, gentlemen. That was very nice indeed. That's all you hear from him. And he was all the time asking to me, because I was very tense, obviously, I was very tense. And he was asking me all the time if I was enjoying myself. Then I understood some things about acting, so it was like a very, very, very brave and very nice and very gentle school for me again. I was like learning a lot of acting, learning a lot about me, learning a lot about Eisenstein, learning a lot about Mexico, learning a lot also about how Europeans see Mexico. It's strange, yeah.
Well, if you trace, and here is the script so you can read it, if you actually look at that language, you're absolutely right. What's his last line? He says he now wants to leave heaven in a hurry. And there is a way that, I suppose, the notion of the loss of innocence is really being rejected from heaven. There are all sorts of, I suppose, fantasy problems about the notions of virginity. Why has Roman Catholicism regarded it as being so important? I think by the year 2015, our notion of taboos about such a subject matter have incredibly relaxed, certainly since our forefathers. But it's interesting, isn't it? And Eisenstein admitted it. He was a virgin until he was 33, which by today's standards is a bit crazy, isn't it? A bit surprising. But I don't think in hindsight we ought to be very superior about that. Isaac Newton, for example, I think he lived 80 years and he was a virgin when he died. Our concept now of sexual politics is very, very different, even again from our forefathers. They say, don't they, everybody from Arthur Miller to you name it, the big year when we all learnt to fuck was 1963. Nobody really seriously fucked before 1963. Sorry, there's a lot of you here, so somebody must have fucked to get you here. But in terms of principle. So, there is a way. We know why 1963, and sometimes it's absolutely very, very negative to think about this, because 1963 is the year of the first successful female contraception. So suddenly, the world did not feel so guilty about notions of sexual activity as a recreation. So you could say 1963 was a loss of the world's virginity. Mind you, this is a game we're playing now, isn't it? We ought to be a bit careful, because there needs to be some sense of responsibility here too. And Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great is supposed to be the same person as Christ. What's so disappointing about Christ, he didn't come with a sword, he came with a kiss. I see now you've gone quiet.
Peter says to you, with me, he told me in the casting, Luis, you need to know that I need from you your mind, your heart, your nude body, and your erect penis. Say no to Peter Greenaway.
Cinema is very, very artificial medium, so let's use its artificiality. I come from a country which has a high regard for notions of realism. What the hell is realism? Realism, if you track your way back through cinema history and people proclaim, I am making realism. You can't make realism. It's an absolutely ridiculous cul-de-sac. There's no way at all. And why bother? God has done it already. Why do you try and imitate that? So the best thing you can do is indeed to use the greatest thing in the whole amazing universe, which is your imagination, and to reconstruct and to organize and play along with the notions of the artificial conventions of the cinema and enjoy them and pursue them. So again, the whole gamut. I suppose somebody like Bazin in the 1930s said that cinema was a mixture of literature, the theater, and if you're very lucky, painting. And there is, we supposedly call cinema the seventh art. I don't think cinema deserves to be called the seventh art. It's far too young and immature. And okay, we don't have to worry about it anymore because it's dead anyway. But there is a way, the flowering, the digital revolution is giving us extraordinary new freedom. So I think maybe the 120 years we've seen of cinema is only the prologue. Cinema begins now. And all filmmakers need to make a demonstration of what an extraordinary rich medium it is. So I suppose, I built my cinema, not just this film, but those 15 feature films we've made, with these sorts of things in mind. Cinema is there to be enjoyed. Let's enjoy it.
Yeah.